Welcome back to Coloring Through the Bible. My name is Keegan Harkins, and I told you last week that on Fridays I was going to be trying to tackle some of the hard questions in the Bible, and if you had any hard questions, leave them in the comments, and we'll talk about them, and I really had no idea that this was going to be the subject of this week's video. And normally I'm really prepared for these things. I've studied, I've researched, I have scripture to share with you, I have quotes from people much smarter than me to share with you. But today I'm really just winging it. I don't have a script. I don't have scriptures written out for you. I just have my heart, and I'm just speaking to you from the heart. Last night I found out that a friend of mine from my early 20s, one of the first friends of mine to get married, she and her 3 children were coming to Montana to visit family, and her husband wasn't with them, and they were in a car accident, and all 4 of them died, leaving her husband all alone. And her kids were close to my kids' age. Her oldest was 16. I have a 14-year-old, and you're just starting at 14. You're planning, you're plotting, you're figuring out what you're going to do for your life. You're starting to get excited for what is coming, and nothing is coming. And I don't even want to think and feel what Gordon is going through. I can't even allow myself to feel that kind of pain. To lose your spouse would be devastating. To lose one child is hard. My husband and I have experienced that, but we had each other. To lose all 3 of your children and your wife, it's hard. So, I guess if there is a hard question of Christianity, this is probably the hardest. Why does God, who loves us so much, allow bad things to happen to his children? That's a question that people have asked me so much through the years. And it is hard. That's the question that I asked the Lord before I gave my life to him. Because I was looking at it from the side of pain, from the side of grief. And it's hard. It's hard to understand. But just because God allows tragedy in our life, it doesn't mean that he's not looking. It doesn't mean that he doesn't care. It doesn't mean that he doesn't feel every ounce of pain that our heart feels. When we cry, God notices. He feels it. As a mother, watching your children grow up, I can't even really explain when you see your child struggling with something and it's broken their little hearts. When somebody's made fun of them, or a friend has decided not to be their friend anymore, or any number of the things that your little children just has their little heart broken over. It is so hard as a parent to watch your child struggling through these life lessons. It's devastating, and you wish that you could just erase it from their memories, and you wish that you could just keep them wrapped in this little bubble. But we don't live in a world that is safe. We don't live in a world that is free of pain and heartache. When sin entered the world in the Garden of Eden, it changed everything. We live in a messed up, fallen world. This isn't God's plan. This is just a stepping stone until we get to eternity. That's God's plan. That's when we will have no more tears, where the Bible tells us in Revelation that God's going to wipe every tear from our eye, that there's going to be a new heaven and a new earth, and that new earth is going to be perfection. That's what we're going towards. This isn't it. This is momentary. And even if you live to be 105 years old, this is still momentary. And things like this happen, and tragedy happens in our life to teach us to, well, the Bible calls it proving our faith. That God gives us trials to prove our faith. And maybe that doesn't make a lot of sense. The best way I can describe it is you never know exactly how you feel about something until it's gone. You know, I don't know if you've ever heard that before. You never know how much you love somebody until they're gone. You never know how much you appreciate something until it's not there. Because we can kind of take things for granted. We can just, you just think, oh, it's always sunny until you go through 8 months of snow and no sun. Then you really, really appreciate it. I live in Montana, and that's something that we really appreciate because we literally get 8 months of snow. So when we have 4 months of sunshine, it's like exciting, and we love summer, and we try and take advantage of it completely because it's fleeting. This life is fleeting, but it's a gift. And it's hard sometimes. And I'm really just heartbroken about my friend and her family. But their struggle's over with. And maybe that's cliche. Oh, they're with the Lord now. They're in a better place. We hear people say that a lot at funerals, but it's the truth. It's us that are still left here that are left with the struggle. And we get mad because their lives were cut short. But their struggle's over with. Their tears have been wiped. They understand. They have eternity now of peace and love and joy. And we have to keep pressing forward. The book of Job tells us that nothing happens to us without God's permission. And sometimes that's really encouraging because we know that if God allows it to happen, then He's got a plan for it. He's going to use it. It's not just arbitrary. He doesn't just send tragedy to our lives because He enjoys watching us struggle. That's not the way God works. No good parent works that way. And the Bible says that God is a good, good Father. He sends tragedy in our life to test us, to prove us, to strengthen us, to change the direction of our life, to give us a lesson so that we can be used by Him to reach other people. There are lots of reasons that we don't even understand in the moment. All we're thinking about is, why am I having to deal with this? But God has a plan. And if He has a plan, He'll also give us the strength to make it through. If that's His plan, that we have to go through this, then we're going to be able to go through it. And no tear is ever cried that God doesn't know. The pain He feels when we feel pain is far greater than the pain we feel. And we need to really, really understand that. Tragedy stinks. It's not fair that we have to struggle on this earth. It's not fair that people die too young. It's not fair that there's sickness. It's not fair that there's calamity and hurricanes and devastation on this earth. It's not fair. It's a result of a fallen world. This world is not God's original plan. That got messed up when sin entered it. But this isn't the end. There's more to come. Perfection is waiting for us. And I don't exactly know what I'm even doing with this video. Normally it's much more polished and thought out. I just wanted to really share my heart. Life can be hard, but it can be beautiful. And I've seen a lot, I've experienced a lot, and it doesn't matter how bad it is. And let me tell you, I'm not naive. Life can be bad. It can be painful. But no matter how bad it is, there's always some good. And we can choose to focus on all the bad. or we can choose to focus on God. Because if we're still breathing, it's not over yet. As long as there is breath in our lungs, there is hope for tomorrow. And there's a reason for every breath we take. There's a reason for every tear that we shed. And we can focus on the negative, and then you just become surrounded in darkness. Let me tell you, that's when you just fall into this pit of despair. You know, look at Job. He covered himself in sackcloth, ripped his clothes. He had sores. He was sick. He was just sitting in the ashes of his life, literally and figuratively. He just was wallowing in it. He didn't start off that way. He started off hoping and trusting, but then after a while, life just got to be too much for him, and he found himself just completely lost. And I can identify that with that, and I know that a lot of you can too. There are times in life when it just gets overwhelming, and you want to just sit in the dust and you want to just wallow in it. But even in the midst of that, God's with us. And even in the midst of the worst times of our life, He's still in control. And He'll give you little blessings. He can make beauty from the ashes of our lives. And it doesn't make sense in the middle of it. It's painful in the middle of it. And we can't see the future being better, but God knows what He's doing. And sometimes the journey is really hard. But if God's the one leading, then we know that ultimately it's all going to work out. I can't tell you why God allows your particular situation. I can't tell you why anything bad happens. All I can give you is a little bit of hope. God is in control, even when we're not. And when life is hard, we need to look up from this life. This isn't it. This isn't the end. This isn't the most important thing. The most important thing is on the other side of eternity. So I just want to give you an encouragement. I know I haven't really given you any answers. I don't know that anybody can give you a set answer except for the Lord. Only God knows why any particular situation happens. But I can tell you He knows. And we may not know. And we may not know for years. But He knows. And He is with us no matter what we're going through. So I want to just encourage you, when life gets rough, look up. And it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to cry. It's okay to cry out to God. He'll hold us. Lean on Him. That's what He's there for. He wants us to trust Him, to need Him, to want Him. So it's okay to say, I can't do this without you, God. Maybe that's even the point. When we try and do things on our own, we'll never be as successful as when we lean on God. So whatever you're going through, whatever you have gone through, whatever you're going to go through, I just want to encourage you, bad things happen, but God is always good. And there is always some good in everything. Look for the good, look for God, and you'll find Him. As the Bible says, seek me and you'll find me. He's not hiding from us. He'll never leave us, even when the world falls apart. I hope you've been encouraged. That's just sharing from my heart. I hope it made sense. If you have any other hard questions that you want tackled, just leave them in the comments and I will do my best. Until we see each other again, have a truly blessed day.